What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Through the Mail Thursdays on the Remember the Greats Sports channel. Today I'm going to open 3 envelopes and I'm going to share them with you, and I'm going to give you a profile of the players that I get out of these envelopes. So the first one is postmarked from Oregon, and it is returned from former pitcher, Pittsburgh Pirate, Bob Johnson on 1, 2, and 3. I actually sent a 4th of the traded card, but he decided to keep it, which is totally fine. These were the only cards that I had of him, so it was like send 3 duplicates or don't send 3 at all. So that's what I decided to do, and he kept one, which is perfectly good. Now, I do want to point out there are 4 Bob Johnsons that have played Major League Baseball. The first one is Indian Bob Johnson, who played in the 1930s, and that was an outfielder, and he has been long deceased. The second one is Rocky Bob Johnson, who was a pinch hitter type player for the Orioles back in the 1960s, who recently passed away in 2019. And this is the third Bob Johnson that played in the majors that we're going to talk about in a second, but there is also a 4th Bob Johnson that played briefly in the early 80s, because it's very important with an individual like this, with a common name like this, that you get the cards right, so to speak. If you send him Rocky Johnson's cards, he's not going to sign them. So I just want to make sure that you get the right Bob Johnson. Right, so this Bob Johnson is Robert Dale Johnson, and he was born in Illinois. He attended Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, but he went as an undrafted free agent that year and was not drafted out of college. Well, he signed with New York Mets, and in 1964 he appeared in A-ball with the Mets farm system, and he primarily stayed in the Mets farm system. It looks like he played part of a season for St. Louis. And it was not until 1969, yes, the Miracle Mets of 1969, that he got a call-up to the major leagues. It's really surprising that he made his major league debut in 1969, because they were right in the heat of that pennant race, and you wouldn't think you'd put the hands of that into a rookie. But maybe the games that he pitched in, the game was just out of reach, and there was no reason not to see what the kid had. So, unfortunately, he did not make the 69 Mets World Series roster, obviously, with only the 2 starts that he had. But he can claim to be a world champion of that 69 Mets team, which is very neat, in my opinion. So, he did not return to the Mets in 1970. As a matter of fact, during the offseason, he was traded to the Kansas City Royals with Amos Otis for Joe Foy. Now, all I have to say is I'm pretty sure the Royals got the better end of that deal, getting Amos Otis. His tenure with the Royals only lasted that one season in 1970, because in the offseason in 1970, he was traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that's how the Royals acquired Freddie Patek. So Johnson was part of 2 trades that were integral parts of the Kansas City Royals for many years to come. Freddie Patek was their shortstop for years, and Amos Otis, who went with Johnson to the Royals, was an outfielder for many seasons for them. Well, he spent 3 years with the Pirates, and they were pretty decent seasons with the Pirates, but his first season in 1971, he actually started 27 games out of the 31 appearances. And he went 9-10, so almost a 500 record that year, but had a real, decent ERA at 3.45. Well, in 1971, he found himself on a pennant championship team with the Pirates, and he faced Juan Marichal in Game 3 of the National League Championship Series. He went 8 innings and got the win against Juan Marichal, which led the team to the World Series. Well, he started Game 2 of the World Series, and unfortunately he got the loss that game. However, the Pirates obviously moved on to win the World Series that year. Well, he followed the 1972 and 73 season pitching for the Pirates. However, in 72 he only started 11 games out of the 31 that he appeared, and the following year in 73 he only made 2 starts out of the 50 appearances. So he was more or less the long reliever type pitcher that year. Well, after the 73 season, he found himself again on the trading block. He was traded from the Pirates to the Cleveland Indians. Well, he only spent about half the season with Cleveland before the Texas Rangers claimed him on waivers. However, they sent him to the minor leagues. Well, after the 74 season, even though the Rangers claimed him, they released him from his contract right at spring training. Well, he was able to sign with the New York Yankees as a free agent. However, he did not make an appearance as a Yankee and spent the entire 75 season in the Yankees' AAA affiliate. Well, after the 75 season, the Yankees let him go, and he played another season with the Royals. However, again, did not get to the major leagues and spent the entire season in the minors. In 1977, he signed with the Atlanta Braves, and by the middle of that season, he was let go from his contract, and he pitched a couple more games with the Philadelphia Phillies minor league organization. Well, after the 1977 season, he was 34 years old, and he retired from baseball. So, thank you, Mr. Johnson. I think that's very cool that you were part of 2 championship teams. The 69 Mets, although you didn't pitch in the World Series, but you got your taste of being a champ in 1971 while pitching in the World Series with the Pirates. Alright, so this next one is postmarked from Texas, and this is somebody that I've never gotten before, that I've been wanting to write for a long time, and that is former Texas Rangers great Toby Herre on 1. 2 is a Yankee, as you can see how long his career was there. 3 is a Cleveland Indian with Andre Thornton, and I'm going to try to send this to Andre after I shoot this video. And another one is a Cleveland Indian as a batting leader with Rick Sutcliffe. And I'm not too sure if Rick signs to the mail. I'm going to have to research that, but I would love to get Rick Sutcliffe on that as well. So Toby Herre was born in West Virginia, but played his high school baseball in Ohio. He at first was drafted, but he told scouts that he wanted to be playing in college, so he was not drafted after his senior year of high school. Well, a year later, a local scout found Toby Harrah not in college, but working in a factory instead. So instead of working in the factory, they signed him to a professional contract. After 1 year in the Phillies organization, however, he was drafted by the Washington Senators in 1967. He spent 1967, 68, 69, and 70, and part of 71 in the minor leagues, and until he was called up to the major leagues in 1971. The very next year, they relocated to Texas, which I think that's what that card indicates, and you can see how young he is on that card compared to that card. This is when things all started to fall into place for Herre. After 1971, appearing in 127 games at the age of 22, in 1972, he appeared in 116 games and made his first All-Star game as a shortstop. He would continue to play for the Texas Rangers, appearing in the 1975 and 1976 All-Star games until 1978, when he was traded to the Cleveland Indians for Texas Rangers great Buddy Bell. Buddy Bell had a very solid career with the Rangers, and Toby Herre went on to the Indians to have a solid career as well. So at age 30, he was playing for the Cleveland Indians, and he had, solid season again, as usual. And not really known for his home run power. He did eclipse 27 home runs at one time in his career, but he also hit 20 and 25 a couple other times. And that's pretty solid for a shortstop third baseman, but he played very good defense. In 1982, which is the leader's card right there, He appeared in all 162 games for the Indians and made the All-Star team. As you can see, he finished the year batting .304. After the 1983 season, however, he was again traded to the New York Yankees, which is the card up there. And that was a lot of people involved in that trade. Most notably, Otis Nixon was the person primarily that he was traded for. Lots of names in there, but Otis Nixon's the biggest name. Then after the 1984 season, he was traded to the New York Yankees to go back home to play for the Texas Rangers for Billy Sample and a minor leaguer. After he spent a couple more seasons, 85 and 86, with the Texas Rangers, at 37 years old, he was granted free agency and he retired from baseball as a player. Well, immediately after his retirement, from 1987 to 1988, he got the job managing the AAA affiliate of the Texas Rangers. From 1989 to 91, he then served as the first base coach for the Texas Rangers under manager Bobby Valentine. In 1992, he shifted to bench coach under Valentine, then replaced him as manager with 76 games left to go in the season. As an interim manager, Herre went 32 and 44. He was not named the full-time manager of the Rangers, and in 1995 he resurfaced in AAA Norfolk as the manager. In 1996, he served as a third base coach for his other former team, the Cleveland Indians, under Mike Hargrove, who, if many of you know, the 96 Indians were quite good. In 97, he served as a minor league hitting coach within the Tigers organization. In 1998, he joined the Tigers Major League club as a hitting coach, serving under Buddy Bell and interim manager Larry Parrish, both teammates of Herre with the Rangers in the mid-'80s. When Bell was hired as the manager of the Rockies in 2000, Herre joined him again by serving as the bench coach through the 2002 season. In 2004, he went on to coach with the Tigers organization all the way through 2012 as a minor league instructor. After the 2012 season, he moved on to the Tigers as their assistant hitting coach. And after the 2013 season, Herre was informed that his contract would not be renewed. So I am not sure since 2013 but what Mr. Herre has been up to. I really don't know from his Wikipedia page. However, this is another one of those guys that we would call put in his time in the minor leagues and was blessed with the opportunity to make baseball an entire career as a player, as a coach, even as a manager. You know, at more managing in the minor leagues, but thank you, Mr. Herre. All right, so this next one is postmarked from Sacramento, California. Dusty Baker. I sent these, in late 2019. And I'm very happy to announce that they all came back signed. That card's really beat up. Should have sent a better card than that, I guess, but, it happens. The Astros' new manager. I sent these care of his business in California. So the address that I sent to was not the Houston Astros, but it was a business, and so I just want to give you the heads up that I sent these during the baseball offseason. I just want to let you know that the address that I sent to was not the Houston Astros. Now, I'm not saying that Mr. Baker will not sign care of the Astros, but that's not where I had success. So, Dusty Baker. I'm not going to do too much talking about Mr. Baker because a lot of people that watch this channel probably know who Dusty Baker already is. So I'm just going to touch on his coaching career as a manager, but I'm also going to touch on his playing career as well. Dusty Baker was drafted out of high school in California, and the two-time All-Star, two-time Silver Slugger, World Series champion, three-time Manager of the Year, who go on to have an illustrious career. At the young age of 19 years old, he got his first taste to the major leagues when the Atlanta Braves called him up in September for 4 or 6 games. Well, that was in 1968. He would spend primarily 1968, 1969, 1970, and 1971 between AAA and the majors. Well, 1972 was the breakout party for Dusty Baker. And he appeared in 127 games for the Atlanta Braves, and he batted .321 and cracked 17 home runs. So I would say that putting Dusty in the outfield worked out pretty good for the Braves that year. Well, he followed up the next year, playing full-time for the Braves at only 24 years old. Following that year, hitting .288 and following up with 21 home runs. The next year, he would hit 20 home runs again. And the following year, 19 home runs. Well, in 1975, after the 75 season, the Atlanta Braves traded Dusty to the Los Angeles Dodgers. That card indicates that right there. Dusty didn't really light the league on fire his first year in LA. Maybe it was getting acclimated to a new team. Maybe there was an injury. But in 1977, he rejuvenated his career again by hitting 30 home runs and batting .291. He would follow that up the next year with only 11 home runs. But in 1979, he would hit 23, and in 1980, he would hit 29. Well, in 81 and 82, appearing for the Dodgers, and the Dodgers won the World Series in 81, he would bat .320 and make his first All-Star team. The next year, he would bat .300 again and be on the All-Star team again in 1982. Well, after the 83 season, he had another somewhat successful year, batting .260 with 15 home runs with the Dodgers. Well, after the 83 season, he was given free agency and he signed with the San Francisco Giants. Well, his tenure in San Francisco was very short-lived, as in 1985, after one season, they would trade him to the Oakland A's. This is where Baker would finish his career, and then after the 1986 season, at 37 years old, he retired as a player. After his retirement, he only spent a very short-lived time out of baseball, and in 1988, he spent the next 4 years as the hitting coach of the San Francisco Giants. Eventually, in 1993, he would replace Roger Craig as the full-time manager of the Giants. Well, he would manage the Giants from 1993 to 2002, and as many of you know, that would have been Barry Bonds' manager at that time. And the Giants had, some success during that time, but they just couldn't win that World Series. Well, he then moved on after the 2002 season to get a job with the Chicago Cubs, and everybody knows what kind of happened in Chicago. I'm not going to summarize his managerial time in Chicago as one incident, but that was the infamous Steve Bartman incident against the Florida Marlins, now the Miami Marlins, and the rest is history. Well, after his time at the Cubs, he moved on to the Reds. He spent from 2008 to 2013 with the Cincinnati Reds. And after the 13 season, he was let go by the Reds, and he spent a couple years in the broadcast booth. And then the Washington Nationals hired him from 2016 to 2017. So add another chapter to his life, a fifth team that he's a manager, and maybe he can turn the Houston Astros organization around. They kind of have a black eye right now, so only time will tell if Dusty Baker is effective as a manager of the Houston Astros. So thank you, Mr. Baker. I really appreciate adding your autograph to my collection. Thank you, Mr. Herre, as well. I hope to get those multi-cards signed by the other two individuals. And again, thank you, Robert Dale Johnson, for signing my cards as well. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me for another Through the Mail Thursday. I look forward to your comments below.